Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Remy for those that are new here, and on this channel I share sewing videos, sewing tutorials, basically sewing related stuff, and sometimes I just like to talk. So if you like to see more sewing related videos, then please click the button below to subscribe so you can join this amazing family. So in today's video I'll be showing you guys how to draft and sew the pattern for this lovely turtleneck dress. I love it. I really enjoyed making it. I enjoy wearing it. It's really chic, really stylish, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy watching this video as well. So let's get right into this tutorial. So yeah, I have my pattern paper, my pattern master, my sellotape, my ruler, my paper scissors, and my fabric scissors. I'm using my Natalie Bray Bodice pattern for this project, and I have a video on my channel showing how to draft this. So I'll start by transferring it onto fresh pattern paper and extending it to my desired length. I'm working with my paper on fold because this dress has an asymmetric detail and you need the entire, basically both sides, not just one half of the pattern to work. So now I'm transferring my shoulder dart into my armhole curve. This isn't actually necessary, but it's just something I'm used to doing out of habit. And next I'm going ahead to clean that shoulder dart to make sure I know that I don't need it anymore. And I'm drawing my new shoulder seam because I'm not using the entire length of the shoulder seam, so I reduced it by half. And I'm going down on my side seam by 3/8 of an inch and coming in by 3/8 of an inch. Now I'll go ahead and connect the new underarm point into my waistline. So that will be my new side seam. And now I'll connect the new shoulder point into the new underarm point that we marked. So over there I have my new armhole curve, and I'm just going in to adjust it till I have what I'm satisfied with. Next I'll go ahead and clean the other parts that I don't need anymore, and I'm adding my seam allowance. Now because this is a tight dress, we need to reduce the hem some more, so I'm going to reduce it by 1¼ inch and connect it to my hip point. So once that is done, I can also add my seam allowance to the lower part of the dress. I'm just going in with a curve to make sure those edges aren't too sharp. Now I'm going ahead to cut out my back pattern. Now onto the front pattern, I transferred this onto fresh pattern paper, but not on fold because we need to make a lot of adjustments to this first. So I'll start by tightening the waist point by ½ inch because I don't want this dress to be loose. So I need to reduce all the ease that we drafted this pattern with. Now I'm going in on the side seam by 3/8 inch and going down by 3/8 inch as well, just like we did for the back. And I'll connect that point to the new waist point that I marked. Now I'm also going ahead to mark a new hip point to make this dress tight. So basically I'm just removing the ease that we drafted this pattern with. And now I'm connecting the new hip point to my new waist point. I'll also go in at the hem and reduce the hem by 1¼ inch to create the pencil effect that I want. Now I'll go ahead and transfer my shoulder dart into my side seam. I'm just connecting that point to the side seam. I'll slash the shoulder dart to enable me transfer the dart easily to the side seam. Now to do this, I need to cut my pattern so I can easily open up the side seam. So I'm just going ahead to do this. So open up the side seam, and this will make it easy for you to close the pattern. When you do this properly, your pattern will lay flat and basically there will be no puckering. So now I'm marking my new shoulder point on the front bodice as well. You want to make sure it aligns with the back. So for the new side dart, you don't want the dart to end directly on your bust. That would be too obvious, so I reduced it by 1½ inch. Now I'm going ahead to cut out my front pattern, well, my new modified front pattern. So So after doing that, I transferred the pattern onto fresh pattern paper on a fold, and now I'm going ahead to add my seam allowance. Now I'm going ahead to transfer all my dots and necessary guidelines. So that's it. I labeled the right part of my pattern and the wrong part of my pattern because this is very important because of the asymmetric detail. So you need to decide where you want the shorter part of your dress to be. I want it to be on that part that I'm marking 3 inch up, and I'll connect that point into the other end of my dress like I just did. And now you need to align the back properly to determine where the shorter part of the back would also be, so that by the time you sew these dresses together, so by the time you cut and you sew, basically there will be no surprises. So then I'm just aligning everything and deciding where the shorter part of my back should be. So I'm just folding the center back seam allowance in, and then I will join the 2 points together using my sellotape. Now I'll mark 3 inches above on that point and then connect it to the lower end. Now I'm just checking because I want to be sure, I don't want to make any mistakes, and connect it to the lower end of the other part of the dress. So now after doing this, you can go ahead, remove your tapes, and then draw a straight line on the seam allowance. Yeah, so this way it's easy to join together and everything just aligns properly when we eventually join it together. So can you see, by the time you join the 2 points together, it just continues nicely and it flows the way we want it to. So that's it. You can see when I put them on each other, right sides together, it aligns properly, which is what we want. We don't want a case whereby you cut it and then it's the other way around. Now for the collar, I'm going ahead to measure my front neckline without the seam allowance and my back neckline without the seam allowance as well. Once I have that measurement, I'll go ahead, take a scrap piece of paper. So I'm just reading a straight line there, then I'll go ahead and measure what I got. That's my front neckline plus my back neckline. I want the height of my collar to be 1.5 inch, so I'm just measuring 1.5 inch there. So now I'm going in by 2 inches, then I'll mark 1/4 inch from that 2 inch point. Basically, I'm trying to create a small dot so that by the time we close that dot, we can create a slight curve for the collar. So after doing that, I'm going ahead to open the dot and then close it so you guys can see it's a very slight curve, but it just makes it fit better. Now I'll go ahead, transfer it onto fresh pattern paper and add seam allowance. But I won't add seam allowance to the center front because we'll be cutting that on fold. So add seam allowance all around and at the back, excluding the center front. So that's it, my collar is also ready. I'm just going ahead to cut it out. So there's just one last thing I forgot to do, which is tightening the armhole, because when you're having a cutout armhole, it's very important for you to tighten it. So I'm just measuring halfway on my armhole curve, and then I measure the 1/2 inch point away from that point. Now I'll connect the new point into my side dot, into basically the end of my side dot, because I'll be transferring this dot into the side dot. So after doing that, I'll go ahead and slash the dot. You guys already know how we do transferring of that. Slash the dot and then close one dot and transfer the dot into the other dot. So over there I have my new side dot, so my side dot has been enlarged. And yeah, I'm going ahead now to place fresh pattern paper underneath so I can smoothen out the dots that we just closed. So that's it. Once I'm satisfied, I'll do the same thing for the other side. And I'm just going in now to draw out my new dot, and yeah, once that is done, I'll go ahead and cut it out. So now I'm just checking that the two armholes are the same, and I'm satisfied with that. So there I have my collar, my back pattern, you cut one of each, and my front pattern, you cut one of that. So for the lower frill, you just measure what you have there minus the allowance and multiply it by 2 or by 3 depending on how tight you want the frill to be. So now I'm going ahead to cut out my pattern or my fabric of choice, and yeah, you also need to basically check and make sure that you cut it in such a way that the fabrics will align when you join them together. I'm also transferring all my dots and all my notches. And yeah, I have all my pieces. I've used interfacing on one half of my collar just to give it a bit of stability. I have my zipper. I also have the lower part for the frill of this dress. I just cut it straight. Yeah, I just cut enough, all I had left actually. And then I have my front pattern. I also cut out my lining. So now let's move on to sewing. So I'll start by sewing all my darts on all my pieces, so the front, the back, and all the lining pieces as well. And once that is done, I'll go ahead and connect the shoulder seams together. So the shoulder seam for the main fabric and for the lining. And next, I'll go ahead and connect, basically sew right sides together of the armhole curve. This is to close our armhole so we have a neat finish. So I'll do the same thing for two sides. You don't have to worry about the neckline for now. So just focus on the armhole. Make sure to match all your seams and just take your time doing this. So now I'm just going in to notch the point. So when I turn it over, it just turns more easily. So that's it, our armhole is all done. You can go ahead and give this a good press, but not yet. Now I'll join the sides together, just making sure my underarm point aligns. So I'll join the fabric and the lining. So I'll join the fabric separately and join the lining separately. So I'm starting from the underarm point. I will join it all the way down, then go back to that underarm point and join the lining all the way down as well. So our dress is coming together nicely, but before I continue, I'll go ahead and interlock all my raw edges. So at this point, I realized I had goofed, so I did not take my own advice and I cut the fabric and the lining in the same direction instead of the opposite direction, because the lining will be on the inside. I don't know if you guys understand, but basically you guys can see my asymmetrical parts are not aligning. That's the lining and the fabric. So now I couldn't go ahead and do this all over again, so I'm just cutting it. I decided to make the lining one length, so I just made the lining short on the inside. Now I'll go ahead and understitch the armhole seam on the lining so it stays on the inside where we want it to. Now I'll go ahead and join the necklines together, so the necklines of the fabric and the necklines of the lining. And I'll also join the center back points together and overlock my hems, so the hem of the lining and the hem of the fabric. So that is all done. The necklines are joined and the center back points are also joined together. Now it's time to work on our collar. I'll go ahead and join right sides together of the collar, but just the upper part now. I don't need to join the lower part, so just right sides together of the upper collar, of the upper part of the collar. So now I'm just going ahead to trim my seam and notch it so it's easy to turn. And you can go ahead and give this a good press. So I did that, and now we'll join it to our main garment. So just take your time, pin everything down, so this can be easy because you're joining two sort of opposite curves together. Basically, you're sewing along a curve, so you just need to take your time while doing this. So that's it, it's all done. Now go ahead and overlock that seam and also my center back seam all down. So after doing that, now it's time to join the center back together. So I just need to decide where I want my zip to end, and I will join just up until that point, like you guys can see me doing here. So now I'm going ahead to sew up until the point where I marked. And now I'll go ahead and iron out my seam allowance, so it's easy for me to sew my zipper when it's time, which is now. And now I'm just going to pin my zipper to the allowance and sew it down. So for this, again, when you're sewing zippers, you just need to take your time. Using a zip foot really helps and it makes a lot of difference. So that's it, guys. The zipper is all done and nice, and now I'll just go in, fold that edge and just stitch it down to finish up the zipper. So for the frill, that's the lower part of this dress, I'll go ahead and overlock the upper edge and hem the lower edge. So once that is all done, we'll sew a basting stitch on the upper edge, the edge that we're going to gather. So that's what I'm doing now. I like the way this looks. And now I'll go ahead and gather it to my desired length. So once I'm satisfied, I will close the opening. And now we can go ahead and attach it to our garment. So just join right sides together, pin everything down. Yeah, just adjust it as you wish, and just make sure you're satisfied with everything before taking it to your sewing machine. So that's it. I'm sewing on the last piece of this puzzle, sewing the frill to the rest of the garment. So our dress is all done, guys. So that's it for today's tutorial. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have any questions. Just ask in the comment section below. Let's get talking. Let me know if you have other methods, tested and trusted methods I use to achieve the same result. And if you're still here to subscribe at this point, this is just a gentle reminder not to forget to. So that's it, guys. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.